Hi, and welcome to Something to Talk About. I'm Linda McNamee, and as you saw from our introduction, we are going to find out tonight a little bit more about Burlington High School and where it stands, physically as well as planning-wise. And hopefully we will clarify some misinformation, perhaps, but I'll let you meet our wonderful guests in a moment. But as always, I would like to invite you to email me at any time. You can reach me at talk@bcattv.org. So feel free to send me a suggestion for a future topic. If you miss one of our guests' emails, you can always email me and I will make sure they get it. And as always, I would like to thank the crew for this evening. Jen Dodge, who is the executive director here, is also pinch hitting for Chris Flaherty, who is unable to be here tonight. We also have Aaron Trickett, Gwyneth McNamee, and Christina Nikitas, who are volunteers who have given up their Wednesday evening to come here, help me out, and just basically hang out at BCAT because I bring cookies. So anyway, and last but definitely not least, it's become a tradition that I would like to thank my husband Paul for staying home for daddy date night. So even though my kids are not home, he gets to stay home with the cats. So thank you, Paul. Wonderful guests. We have Katherine Bond, who is the chair of the BHS Building Committee.
Correct.
And Christopher Blessen.
Chris.
Chris,
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Only my mom calls me. Okay, and you are the building architect
Yeah.
for Tape
Right, yeah.
Architects. Should have grabbed my daughter. She's the one that's taking French class. And Terry Hartford, who is the project manager from Dorr and Whittier.
Correct.
And you guys are going to set the record straight as to what's really going on with the project.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Before we begin, just to kind of get to know you guys a little bit better, get to understand your credibility, why you're here, brief 5-cent, 10-cent tour of where you grew up, how you came to the Burlington area, and what made you get involved in what you are doing for this project.
You want me to start?
Sure.
Okay.
Because you're in the first seat.
That's right. So I actually was born in Baltimore, Maryland, and this is my 8th state I've lived in. And I've lived from coast to coast and everywhere in between. In 1990, well, I come from a family of teachers going all the way back on my mother's side to my great-grandmother. My husband and I lived in Medford and wanted to get out of our condo when we were looking at communities to go to, and Burlington seemed to be the one when we were looking around that was closest work-wise, among other things, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But we moved here in 1996, and my daughter was born. We had no children when we moved here, and she went through the school system K through 12, and as many parents do, because I know you're one of them, you get involved in the extracurricular activities. So I ended up coaching Pop Warner cheer. I ended up being the treasurer for the Winchester Figure Skating Club. I ended up on the board of directors for BHSA. I was on the board of directors for the Burlington Swim and Tennis Club. And after she graduated,
You're like,
I
now
needed
what do I
something to do. So I decided to run for school committee, and I'm in my second, term of being on the school committee. I'm also on the Fox Hill Building Committee as the vice chair and, as you know, chair of the high school building committee. So again, that's kind of how things are. I just wanted to, be a part of the community and start to volunteer.
Well, thank you.
I got here.
It's getting really hard to find volunteers to do anything, so thank you for your time.
No, and yes, you're right. It's I think it's true in every town and even in churches or whatever. I think there's the same 20% of the people who pretty much do everything. So again, I appreciate all the people who do volunteer, and I get it. It is time consuming at times.
That it is.
Chris.
Yeah. So I'm at TAPE, and TAPE, I've been up in Boston for over 20 years now.
Okay.
And what led me to TAPE is our commitment on public spaces, in particular schools.
Okay.
And so TAPE was founded over 45 years ago and has been dedicated to that the entire time. And so
Okay.
when you graduate architecture school, you get a lot of options on what kind of architecture you want to do.
Okay.
And
So like hospitals versus,
residential,
retail or residential
condos, housing, whatever.
Okay.
And I, in particular, wanted to do architecture that could help communities and help people, and
Okay.
more than just the people who live in the space.
Okay.
But public places are kind of one of the few things that unites anybody, no matter if your demographic or financial capacity. You get to go to these spaces, and so I kind of wanted to focus my practice on that, and so I've been doing that for, like I said, over 20 years in the field, and here we are with Burlington High School, and able to sort of inject all of that knowledge and expertise into the building environment. So,
Cool.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Now, wait, do you do the outside, the inside, or both?
All of it. So
All of it. Wow.
as architect, and I'm the principal architect, I actually personally have a team of 10 or 12 architects that will touch
Okay.
this building at some point
Wow, okay.
in its development. And then beyond that, there's probably dozens. I can cut dozens of engineers and other firms that are under our
Okay.
umbrella, but I lead the entire design team for inside, outside, site work, engineering, everything. So
Wow. Okay. I just remember when I redid my kitchen, just trying to figure out drawer pulls, my head was
That's
ready to
right.
explode. I couldn't imagine
right.
trying to plan an entire school.
a lot of details.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yep, so my name's Terry Hartford. I actually got a degree in engineering down the street at Tufts a while ago now. Actually, I just went to my 35th high school reunion, so feeling a little old. But I spent, following that, about 25 years in the international energy development business, traveling around the world. I lived overseas for a while. Actually worked in Burlington from 2002 to 14 on Wayside Road and then Corporate Drive, and really involved in project management in terms of developing things, and then ultimately through some contacts landed with Dorn Whittier, which is largely an architectural firm that designs public schools here in the Commonwealth, as well as public safety, fire stations, things like that. But they also have a small group called Owners Project Managers. We are principally focused on building schools here in the Commonwealth. That's 95% of our business.
Okay.
And so I've been doing that with them for the last several years. And, we came upon this opportunity. Dorn Whittier is also the Owner's Project Manager on the Fox Hill project. So we have I wouldn't say a storied history with Burlington, but we are very familiar with both
But
building
you have like
committees.
that connection.
Yeah,
so-
and it's super helpful because knowing all of the people just helps me. So that project started probably 18 months before we started 2.5 years ago. And that's what's brought us here today.
I did want to state, though, that it wasn't like we just picked Dorn Whittier. We went through
Okay.
the same MSBA process that they did for Fox Hill, so it all went
Okay.
out to bid. They were one amongst, I think, 5 or 6 firms that we looked at.
Okay.
And the committee evaluated, and we interviewed them.
And the committee was the building committee,
the
not
building
the
committee,
school committee.
Not the school committee. I mean,
Okay.
the school committee, there are all 5 school committee members happen to be a part of the building
But it
committee.
wasn't
But
this-
it wasn't, there are 22
it wasn't exclusive.
individuals
Okay.
who made that decision.
Wow.
And there were interview process, and they happened to win the bid.
So
The situation.
in the bidding process, in choosing the architectural firm as well as the project management team, when did the actual design aspect enter the picture? Because didn't you guys start with like 16 or 18 designs and,
So I can start, but these two, so
Yeah.
again, so kind of
total knockdown versus
Yeah, so
okay.
again, what happened, I know there's some specific things that we wanted to talk about, but
Right.
I will
We're
talk
just going to
about-
recap.
We'll just kind of recap it, but, town meeting had decided, a couple years ago that because we had approached them, the high school needed some attention. And we've known that for 13 plus years.
Right.
And I think most people are familiar, but if they're not, we've been applying to get MSBA funding for 13 plus years, and we've been turned down.
Right.
So at one point we said, you know what, Fox Hill really needs attention. You know, I know when my daughter was there were modules, and you know, I know that was 20 some years ago.
The temporary classrooms
and on
that
top
are,
of that, you know, there, you know, teachers in closets, and it was just getting dire, you know, over at Fox Hill. So we said, let's submit Fox Hill to MSBA. And the first year they were accepted. They were outgrowing the space, or a lot of other reasons for that, but
Okay.
that is a primary reason that people get MSBA funding. So once Fox Hill went into the program, you know, the high school is still a problem. So we went to town meeting and, you know, explained what was going on, and I think a lot of people have been aware of it. And town meeting voted to give us 1.5 or appropriate $1.5 million for us to do a feasibility study. And
Okay.
you know, I believe that they would give you that money because they knew that it was something that needs to be completed. Why would you go through
Right.
this whole process? It's a 2-year process that you go through because we're following the MSB process. You know, you do want to have an end result, and that end result should be, yeah, this is what we're going to do.
Right.
You know, either you're going to build a new school,
But
you're going to do
also,
addition reno, whatever it was that we came up
in
with.
looking at the school, because yes, I know, you know, the HVAC system was being held together with bubble gum and Band-Aids, but as you looked closer, it's like, oh, wait, because Melissa had come on and talked with me about the project, and what really surprised me at that point was she said the school has 13 different levels. So like from this hallway to that hallway, anytime you have to use a staircase, that's like a different level. And then what scared me was fire suppression. There's no sprinklers. Or if they are, they're hidden really well. So, okay, so we have this feasibility study. It was, and also with the MSBA
MSBA, yep.
funding, my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding was the reason why it was not accepted is because the current building is big enough for 2,000 students where only 1,000 students attend, and if they were to rebuild it, we would have to lose a gymnasium, lose the central administration, lose space for BCAT, lose space for the preschool, and I'm not sure, would we have lost Science Center as well,
So,
theoretically?
yeah, so I'll
So
let
then
them
we still
address-
have to find
I'll
out,
let them
okay.
talk about the whole
I should just let you
MSBA
guys
thing, but
talk, and I'll just shut up.
I'll go ahead and let them
So
address
that's
it.
an oversimplification
Right,
of
yeah.
what you can do. The MSBA will fund a school.
Okay.
And what they'll say is, here at Burlington, we have approximately 1,000 students. You'll go through something called a space summary where they say you need this many classrooms, you need this many special ed classrooms, you need an auditorium, you need a gymnasium. It's going to be a specific size.
Based
And
on
you're
the
going to
student
have
population.
principals' offices, guidance, all of that.
So your
and that-
standard
That becomes
school.
the high school.
Okay,
And that is what you can then apply for grant funding for.
okay.
If you want to have something above and beyond that, you can have whatever you want.
You can do what they're doing in Lexington.
Sure. But
Which, we'll talk about that later.
so most places do have district offices. And here at Burlington High School, in addition to just the high school function, they've actually said this building was designed for 2,000 kids. Okay, it has 1,000 kids. It has 360,000 square feet. I think the estimate that we came up with for a high school only is about 215. So there's 145,000 extra square feet. And you know what's in that square footage? Everything that you just mentioned.
Right.
Okay.
The town has decided to utilize the building over the course of years, decades.
Okay.
And so the building is actually fully utilized by all these programs. And so what happens with the grant funding is if you want to do something with that, you can do it. You're just not going to get any reimbursement for it. It's as
Okay.
simple as that.
So it's still up to you. So yes, the high school theoretically
Mm-hmm.
could have been funded. but then we'd still
Could have
need
received,
another.
could have received grant funding.
Okay,
Yes.
we would have received grant funding for their parameters of a high school.
Could have,
Correct.
correct.
So, but if that had happened, we would be on our own to figure out where admin's going. So because they wouldn't be able to stay in this high school because this high school is falling apart, hence the need for a new school.
Well, they wouldn't be able to stay here because the biggest problem of the high school is the middle section,
Okay,
which we're trying to correct by knocking that out.
okay.
Which then displaces, other departments. So we
Okay.
can kind of talk about, I know, I don't want to
Caught on that.
go farther into,
No,
what the
go.
design plan is unless you want me to,
No,
but.
just talk because I keep interrupting you guys and
No, you're not
I
interrupting.
need to let you guys.
But, I guess,
Stop
I
the
don't know if you want to, I don't know, we can go through kind of the decision process maybe?
Okay. I do like on the website where you just like slide your mouse over and you see the before and after. That is so cool. All right.
Yeah, so, excuse me, one of the strategies when we were brought on, and just for clarity, the architects went through the same competitive selection process that the
Okay.
OPMs did, and so, we had to work for that. But when we came on board, the school is so complicated, like you had mentioned, like people will see, it's a 2-story school. Well, it seems that way, but there's
But you can't get there from here.
There's 3 second floors and there's 10 first floors and there's, so like nothing is connected. And I knew back then, almost 2 years ago now, that it was like, we're gonna have to be able to tell this story of how you dissect a building like this. Like we can't just go in and say, well, it's this option and that's it, right? So we went through and first, before we ever put any pencil down on a conceptual option that would communicate program, we told the building committee about a set of options. We said, or not options, but strategies. We said, here's a strategy on how you might deal with that building. Put something over here, or take the middle out, or take this wing off, or take that wing off. We didn't say anything about like what replaces it. We're just saying, dissecting the building in chunks and how it's built now. These are the
Almost
logical
like a
ways.
modular system type thing.
Well, it's like the logical ways you could take the building apart to do something about it, right? And so we tried to go through that. There was, 6 or 8 options out of that, or strategies out of that, maybe even 9. And then from there, we assigned options to each of those strategies. Some strategies had 1 or 2, some might have had 3, and they ran the gamut from just renovating what's here to a full replacement of the building, or either on Varsity Field or right here in place. And so we ran through all of those options and just tried to get through the big moments of like, what is a non-negotiable? So kids disrupted for a very long period of time, some of which might be disrupted for their entire high school career by being in modulars or trailers in the parking lot or something like that.
And and the modulars cost money.
They do.
And it's not money that you recover. And I think it was around $9 million on
very
average
expensive.
that you would spend that you
Very
just
expensive.
throw away when
You watch it go down the
you walk
road
it down the
in a
drain
trailer.
and it goes away when the project's over.
Right.
Would
And
you
also,
rather
where
take
do
that
you
$9
put-
million and
Where do you put
Where you
all
put
of
the
these
trailers.
modular buildings
well, that's the other problem
for
too. But
And the
1,000 people?
other thing we had to demonstrate too, which is really well documented on the project website, which I hope you can point your viewers to the project website. But there's the site is incredibly constrained on almost every edge. There's wetlands everywhere, conservation land, and we went through the whole process of trying to identify the exact boundaries for which we can build in. That's on the website, and the Conservation Commission has weighed in and agreed with those limitations. And therefore, out of that, we were able to really lead the building committee and community through a process that went through these options. And thankfully, we had pretty early on pretty good feedback from the abutters about things that would really bother them. And
like
the
having a
abutters.
second entrance to the high school.
well, right. And so, to kind of support what he was saying, I mean, I think there are some people who aren't sure how many options we looked at. And we did look at, I think it was 12 total options,
Okay.
including a full renovation of the building,
Okay.
you know, from just a pure renovation.
Right.
And you know, I'll have you guys get into the details, but again, through the committee of 22 individuals, and we're talking about just people from the community. We have, you know, if you can go look at the MSBA and the group of people they ask you to try and put together, but it is a very diverse group of people.
Okay.
And like I said, as people from the community, we had teachers, we had, you know, administrators, we had school committee people, we had Ways and Means, we had a good, you know, variety of people who were making this decision. It wasn't just the school committee.
Okay.
And so as these options were presented, again, I think there were 12 of them, we took the time at each meeting and we discussed, you know, what's important to us. What do the teachers need? What do the students need? What does the community need? You know, how are we using this space now? What do we lose if this goes away, or we move this off the campus? Or again, you know, we went to, you know, there are working groups we haven't really talked about. So as part of being a part of the committee, we have these working groups, and the working groups, you know, some will focus on the design, some focus on sustainability, some focused on, you know, community outreach. And so, you know, community outreach has always been important to us as well. So we very early on tried to find events that we could attend to get the word out, so we could hear back from the community. What do you want? You know, what do you think we need? And I think 2 of the options that we added to the 12 came from those meetings. We were at the beer gardens one night, and I think somebody came up to us and said, "Why don't you build the school on the football field?" And we were like, okay.
We initially said that's off the table
Right.
because it's a newer field.
Just
and,
redid the field.
and it's
But that's what they did with my old high school.
yeah. Well, that's
But
the
they rebuilt
typical
it.
way to do
Right.
these projects is that.
And so, you know, we were sensitive to the fact that that was a newer field, or that it had just been resurfaced or whatever. So that's not an option that they have presented to us early on. But we're like, you know what, the community has asked us to look at this, so let's look at it. So we had, you know, Tape and Doran Whittier went back to the drawing board and came up with a couple options.
Literally.
We also attended, you know, another community event, and somebody said, well, why don't you go find another building to move into? And we found one across the street. And we went and looked at a building across the street. And so, you know, again, they came up with some, I can let you talk about it a little bit more, but design plan, which, you know, entailed, you know, we'd have to, obviously, it was a nice building, I will say that. Some more work would have to be done to move the school into, but you still had to put an addition on it. And then we as a committee talked about the fact that it's across the street, and now you're going to have students who will be crossing a busy highway to try and get over to the, to participate in the sports and gym that's going to
Okay.
be over on the field, et cetera, and the band, right? And is that really smart to try and have them crossing this busy
Yeah.
highway all the time, you know? So
For
I
their
don't know if
entire-
you wanted to get more
yeah,
into the
okay.
details of all what you designed and we looked at, but we, as a committee, really dug in and discussed it and said, okay, we're going to eliminate that because of safety issues, or because we didn't want to put the students in modulars for 4 or 5 years or whatever it was. We just tried to find the least disruptive plan that would serve the community.
And during all of this decision-making and plan evaluation process, did finance come up yet? Or did you
yeah.
just look at, okay, this is what we need, and then when we finally figured out what we need, well, that's what we're going to
Well,
cost?
you start there. You start with
Okay.
the program. We have to know what we're building
Okay.
and what is needed, right? And so we start there, and then we start to assign square footages to that. Like Terry said, the spreadsheet we use kind of helps us get there, but then we refine it. We have programming meetings with the staff and the users of the building. And then we start to do high level, they're not cost estimates at that level, they're just like cost comparisons. So you can compare
Okay.
one option to the other
Okay.
and say, this is the distinction between those options.
Okay.
And then we start drilling down from there and saying, okay, one option might be this much and another option might be this much. What's the program differences between the two? So some of
Okay.
them had, like early on, you would notice some of them had, and the screen shows those estimates, but some of them would have know what we're calling now, all the program in like BCAT or
Okay.
those things that are now in the building that's called Center for Education, we just didn't have them in there because we were like, hey, we're
Okay.
building a high school.
Right,
And,
okay.
and so some of the costs were like, oh, that's really low. But then the building committee said, but if we don't address that, they've got to go somewhere else in the community. And we, in this,
And that's going to
this,
cost.
this town has to take care of that one way or another, right?
Okay.
And so the cost and finances were always a part of it. And I think
Okay.
it's always been cognizant to my mind, I know Doran Whittier's mind and the building committee's mind, that we need to build the most cost-effective, educationally appropriate building that we can build and utilize the resources we have in front of us the best way possible. And that's where the current option came into play, where it was like, hey, the middle of the building is the worst. It's the part that has the 12 first floors between this one and the bottom one, and the 3 second floors between this one and the other 3. Let's take that out, keep the elements that are really good or that can
Okay.
be good, which is like the auditorium, the gyms, those things. And
Now,
then
are those going
in
to
the-
be renovated at all?
yeah, of
or-
course.
Okay.
Renovated, brought up to modern
Code.
standards and code, and be really competitive with what your neighbors have, like Lexington and Woburn and all of that. And then when we took the middle out, you have this asset here, this existing building that we don't need to rebuild and we don't need to tear down, and it houses most of the components that even if you were in the MSBA's program, you would be rebuilding on your own dollar anyway. And so this was like the most bang for your buck that you can get, is that we're not displacing all of these components. You're actually able to expand the Burlington early education component
Okay.
and really build on the assets you already have and get a high quality education environment for the high school at the same time.
And I did talk about it or touch on it a little bit earlier, but when you knock out the middle section,
Mm-hmm.
I have a list here because I don't want to miss any of them, but
Okay.
the programs or the areas that are getting displaced, that are used on a daily basis by the students, okay? So again, we have the IT Help Center, the lower library and the tutor offices, robotics, the Pathways program, the Simon's Youth program. And I always like to also, even though the early childhood, the BECC and BCAT aren't classes that the kids take, all right,
Right.
the students take. And you've seen it, students are here every day.
All the time.
Right? And they're able to take advantage of being able to have BCAT on campus. And as you know, they come in and they grab the cameras and they're filming the basketball games and the
Right.
football games, and they're grabbing the camera and doing their own special fun projects.
Well, now speak of the Devils.
Right, exactly. They're,
Or Devil's Sunrise, sorry.
right. But they do get the opportunity to, do the news and to learn how to do the weather. And I know there are a couple students from here who went off to school and that's what they're doing. So these kinds of things go on their college resume. Or if they're not going into college, I think it still looks good for whatever trade you decide to do, that you volunteered somewhere, you did something extra, you had an after-school activity or something you were interested in that can help you, develop those kinds of skills. And it's the same thing with the BCC. They go and read to the students, and they, someone may not know whether they want to, I don't know, be a teacher or, go into that type
Early
of
childhood
care
education,
or whatever it is. They get exposed to it. And if you remove those kind of things and they can't walk there, how are they going to do that, right? It's
Right.
not fair to try and just assume that every child has access to a car or has, we're not busing them there. Not everyone has parents who can take them. You can't always ride in a car with another student because of the restrictions the state
Right.
puts on kids who get their licenses. So, I just think it's good that we keep this as a good community center, because people come here, they do things here. I mean, obviously, town meeting is here, right? So there's just so much that goes on at this. It's like the high school is the heart of the community,
Right. I might be jumping ahead, but by having a functional state-of-the-art school, wouldn't that help bring talented, wouldn't that be a place people would want to move to? I want to raise my kids in Burlington because they have a brand new school instead of, they're still using 50-year-old science equipment.
So, I like to say that, and you can ask real estate agents this too, but as a school committee member, right, and also as a mother, which is the number one important thing. You know, and then when I moved here, like I said, I didn't have children, but when Brad and I, or my husband and I, were looking for somewhere to move, you absolutely look at the schools. That is one of the first things you look at. You look at, you know, how close the house or whatever, you know,
Right.
is to work, you know, as one of those
Right.
considerations. But, and of course, you know, you look at the schools, you look at it, a bunch of things. But, you know, Burlington in general is a wonderful community. And again, neither one of us grew up here. You know, he's from Florida and Georgia. It's not like we grew up in Massachusetts and said, Burlington's where I want to be. We grew up there. We ended up here because where we had lived throughout Massachusetts, we always seemed to come to Burlington. You know, it was either, you know, to go to the mall or, you know, to, well, I'm going to say comic book store, you know, and you know, or to go to dinner, whatever it was. You know, Burlington seemed to be that like central point that was close to the city. And when you started to read more and more about it, you know, the taxes were low. And you know, I think we might get into that a little bit later, but, you know, the schools and the taxes and what goes on in the community, you know, it's some of the lowest, the taxes are some of the lowest in the state. And even with an increase from the other two projects going on and this debt exclusion, which would be a temporary increase, we still are lower than a lot of our neighboring towns. And what I like to bring up is not only are we lower, but we offer more services.
You don't have to pay for buses or trash collection.
Exactly. So there's so much this town has to offer. So I'm going to let them take over, you know, some of the other. I know. I love this town, and
I will try really hard not to say anything, so keep talking.
No, it's your show. Tell
Yeah,
us.
no,
What do you
I mean,
want?
I guess, you know, just from a historic perspective, when, you know, I said before working at Dora and Whittier, we build schools. Burlington High School isn't just a school, and we learned that over months. And this is it's a community asset, and so people call it the Burlington High School Project, and I get it, that's what it is, but it's not just that. And we are trying to provide a solution to a whole host of programming that's important throughout the community, and it just happens to reside here. So if we just wanted to build a new school on Varsity Field, we could have done that for probably cheaper than what's there. And then you would have this building and all of those programmings, and that would be what happens now. And you'd have to renovate it.
Okay.
And I think over the course of months, and I mean months, we figured out that we need to solve the bigger problem and address all of those programming needs.
Okay.
And, you know, we looked at new options, ad renos, going somewhere else. And ultimately, we came with a solution, or Chris and his team came with a solution that I actually think makes the best use of this campus that's in Burlington. There isn't some site somewhere
Right.
that you can have parking in a building and kids can get to. That
At a central location.
We looked.
right.
It doesn't exist. And so constrained to be here is kind of what we are. And so I think we came up with a solution that provides a new academic high school. So the educational deficiencies of this building are well known. And if folks doubt those, we're going to have tours here over the next couple of weeks. I invite you to come down. We'll take you upstairs. And you can look
Oh,
out.
no, you don't take them.
No.
You hand them a kid's
You
schedule and
can-
say,
Tell
go
them
to
to
your
go find
classes.
it. Right.
You can
And get
take
there.
them-
Get there in
you
5
can-
minutes.
You can take them to the
Because that's what
science
they get.
classrooms where none of the equipment works. They can look out the, that's
there
right, there
aren't
aren't any windows.
And I'm also thinking,
So
you know-
all of that, and then just getting around the building. There's the whole host of compliance deficiencies, ADA issues
Oh
that
my gosh, like the ramps.
the ramps are a struggle. There's just, this building was designed in a time well before we had actually modern day codes. And so if we're going to build a modern building in the new academic wing, we're required to bring everything else up to code. That's just a fact, right? And everything in this building, right, is original. So when your water heater breaks or your burner blows up, what do? You replace it. That's what we need to do. We're
Right.
at that stage, and I know people are like, well, it'll last another, maybe it will. I can't prognosticate.
Right.
But what happens if 2 years from now that does happen?
Right.
Then what do we do? And I think the building committee and town meeting, they recognize the problem. They've been doing studies here for almost a decade saying, you need to replace this stuff. So, I often, if we don't do anything and something breaks, someone's going to say, well, we didn't see the signs. And I would say, well, here's a report in 2017. Here's another one in 21, 22.
Right.
We did all of our work in 24. All of them said, you need to do this. And I just think there's an acknowledgement that it's time.
Right. Well, I'm also thinking, yes, the physical aspects of the building are all original, exactly what you're saying. But then there's also, okay, if COVID didn't teach us anything else, it's the importance of mental health. And being deprived of natural light. How are we going to get the best teachers to say, oh yeah, I am going to want to dedicate my career to sitting in a room with no windows? And kids not exposed to natural light. The whole seasonal affective
What is it?
SADS.
Yeah.
SAD. Yeah, I forget what it's called. But yeah, the natural.
But even when you look at our current science labs, right?
Yeah.
There's no lighting, there's no
There's no
ventilation.
Let's blow
the
something
drains
up
don't work
with-
properly. And if you think about it, think about, I was thinking about this today actually. I think about 50 years ago and technology and where things were 50 years ago in terms of science and technology. And I think about too, like even with my grandmother, for example, you think about it, when she was born, she was there was still horse and carriage, cars were kind of there, but I look at what the growth that she went through as far as technology. I mean, first man on the moon and, airplanes and all that stuff. And you think about this high school and science labs that were built 50 years ago, and that's what our kids are working in. And we're expecting them to go off to college.
50 years ago, they worked.
Right, 50 years ago it was great, but it's to the point now where it's critical for them to, for us to give our teachers, give our students, and give our community competitive space,
Right.
so that we can get kids out there who can get on with their lives, whatever they want to do, whether
And
that's
get good jobs so they
get
can
good
move
jobs
back
so they can
here.
come back here and whatever they do, maybe they go into a technical career, maybe they go into the military, maybe they go off to college. Whatever it is, we need to give them the best that we can give them, and right now we're not.
Okay. All right, I keep interrupting you, and I just have completely lost everything that I'm supposed to be doing. Health and safety. Okay, we've talked about mental health and natural light, but also no windows, no fresh air, chemistry labs without any windows. I mean, could there be, or have there been, long-term health effects from anybody in this building? There's asbestos, there's a bomb shelter, I don't know what's in here. But yeah, ADA compliance, health and safety.
We're grandfathered in. I
Right.
mean, essentially, when you think about our high school, we're kind of grandfathered in, and
so-
it's not. And I will say we have a facilities team that has done a very good job maintaining our schools, which is why we have equipment that we're able to continue to kind of keep working. But it's getting, when you have a 50-year-old system, I've heard from the facilities folks that it's getting harder and harder to find the parts.
Right.
So it's not only, what we're talking about, that we could have the HVAC system might last another 5 years. It could be 2, it could be 1, it could be 6 months. We don't know. But as we keep kicking the can down the road, what happens when we can't find the parts?
Okay.
What do we do?
Let's move on now, because I feel like I'm dragging us through the same loop. we were to move ahead with this project, if the tax override gets
Debt exclusion.
The debt
debt exclusion passes, how much money are we actually talking?
So we actually have a slide for that, and I believe it's slide 15.
So I can walk through that
You
answer.
can walk
as
through it,
people
but
are
you
looking
can go
at it.
ahead.
So,
Like, are we talking,
the debt ex-
doubling our taxes, or?
the debt exclusion amount is just over 333 million, which is, I'll call it a not to exceed figure. And based on the mean assessed value, not
Not value.
what your house sells for, your assessed value, which should be on your taxes, of 780,000, your tax bill is going to go up annually just under $1,200 a year.
So,
Now-
So that's
and
like
if you look
$100
at
a
the
month.
slide we have up there, it's a gradual increase. So
Okay.
it's phased over 3 to 5 years. And so if you want to look at a quarterly amount,
Okay.
it's between $250 to $300 a quarter for that average home.
For getting.
But if you're at a household that's assessed at $400,000, it's going to be less than the $250 or $300 per quarter. And if you're assessed at $1 million, you're going to pay more. I mean, we're talking about that middle number, and I think a lot of people are very hyper focused on that number. But again, there's a larger percentage of people who are below that average.
So it's not a flat rate.
It's not a
it's
flat rate,
based
and it's a
on-
Based on your
gradual
assessed value.
increase. And what I
Okay.
like to remind people is that because it's a debt exclusion vote, it's like when you buy a car or you have a mortgage. At the end of that note, it goes away. So it's a separate line item on your tax bill.
Okay.
And you'll see that. And if it's a 20-year or 25 years, whatever it might be, it will go away. And in talking to Ways and Means, we may get a lower interest rate. All these things can make the number come down. So, or let's say we don't spend the whole 334 million.
Okay.
Again, we only borrow what we need to borrow at the time. So,
Okay.
I think we need to keep that in perspective as well.
And when would homeowners first see that?
What we just had that slide.
Oh, okay. Is it like immediate?
No.
Okay.
That's why I said it's a gradual over 3 years. And I think the slide
Okay.
that we just had up, it shows that
Okay.
the first year was $0, the second or third year was $50.
So
and it
construction
just-
is scheduled to start in '27, which was
Okay.
when real borrowing will start to happen.
Okay.
And it's, call it a 3-year construction period.
I'm just too blind. I can't read.
No, it's hard to see the
monitor
numbers, but it
from
is a
here, but-
gradual progression.
Okay.
And all of this is on our site
On the
as well.
website,
And
okay.
we've shown these slides at town meeting. And,
Okay.
again, we just want to get people to go to the BHSBuildingProject.com so they can see things firsthand.
Okay.
Look at the tabs, go through. You'll see all of the studies that have been done by independent,
Okay.
organizations. It's not just Doran Whittier and Tapé who are
Okay.
telling us what we need to do. Again, over 13 years ago, we knew that this was something that needed to be done.
And if
And it would have been great if, 5 years into it, we would, MSBA would have said sure. But that's not what happened. And so now here we are,
and waiting for later, it's probably not
It's
going to
just-
get too much cheaper.
no.
Definitely won't get cheaper.
I think it's what we're guesstimating about a 5% increase per year. And there are people, and not like, I don't think that they're doing it on purpose, but people keep saying or using the phrase matching funds. And I think when people think matching funds, they think 50-50. So, on a $334 million project, you're going to get half. That's not how it works.
Okay.
So if you look at Fox Hill, I think we got around 30% of the
Okay.
project, right? You look at Lexington, they got a little over 18%. So we don't know what we would get or wouldn't get. But if you start to, by the time, let's say that we wait and we applied for MSBA and miraculously somewhere that, they say yes. I think the first year that we could even think about anything. So we've got to finish building Fox Hill. I don't think MSBA is going to give us anything until Fox Hill is
Right.
complete. So that's, at least 3 years down the pike. Then you have to do what we're doing right now. you have
All over
a
again.
feasibility, let's say MSBA says yes, whatever. Now you've got to go through this whole process all over again. You add another 2 years to that, and then so by the time you add up and compound all of the, 5%, 5%, even the money I think that we would get from MSBA isn't, I think, going to make up the difference in how much more the project's going to cost us in the end.
Okay.
So I get people's concern.
Okay.
I understand, there are people who are on fixed incomes. We understand that, and we've tried to, and you guys can talk about it a little bit more, but we've tried to point people in the direction and how they can get relief. So it's not that we don't hear that, because we do.
Okay.
Can I just come back to
Yeah,
the-
go on, Terry.
No, I want to come back to this matching funds piece, and I'm just going to use Fox Hill because that's actually relevant and it's
Okay.
receiving funding. The MSBA is providing, I think, just over 40% matching grant for 47% of the costs, the eligible costs. That's approximately $65 million, and so you're getting a grant of approximately $31 million. However, the total project cost is more like $100 million. So
Okay.
your effective rate, what you're actually being reimbursed, is less than 30%. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So now I'll use a different example that people like to use frequently, which is the Lexington project. The Lexington project is $660-odd million.
Wow.
They are having,
What is Lexington? Is it a new high school?
it will be a new high school.
Okay.
They're building on their football field.
And actually, there's actually an addition renovation of a portion of it. But
Okay,
at the end of the
okay.
day,
I missed
that
that.
project, the total project cost on that is $660 million. The effective rate, okay, just like the 30 million that I used in that other example, is 18.2%. So when people talk about matching funds, they don't necessarily understand that the MSBA has a very strict calculus as to what qualifies and what does not.
Okay.
And so in conversations with the MSBA on this project, our estimate is that your effective rate would be between 15 and 20%, just like Lexington, right?
Okay.
And so when people say, let's wait, okay, let's wait for MSBA funding. Fine. The problem is that the MSBA isn't going to fund two core projects at the same time,
Right.
right? So Fox Hill has to play its course. The kids are going to move in 27. The site work will be done in 28. Estimates on closeout with an MSBA project is anywhere between 1 and 3 years. So
Okay.
I'll just say it's 2030. We
Okay.
apply, and all of a sudden the high school gets in. Great. They will do a 2-year
That's still a big if.
They will do
It's a big if, yep.
Oh, it's a big if. They'll do a 2-year feasibility study, okay? Then they'll start construction, and whatever option they come up with, right, will be similar to ours. It'll be, call it 3 to 4 years. So the midpoint of construction there puts you out to, I don't know, 2034, 2035. That's 10 years from now.
Right.
So in Catherine's example of using 5% escalation, simple math says it's going to go up 50%. But even if it's 3% or 4%,
It's going to cost us.
that's an
same.
enormous figure on the present value that we have right now. And so I'm not sure if waiting that amount of time is worth it to get a grant that is really just going to end up offsetting escalation and pushing out the problem another 10 years. That's the math that we use.
Okay.
And people can poke holes in it, but I think Chris said it before, the cost isn't going down. No one says that. I don't hear that anywhere about anything.
No.
No. And the town's going to end up paying for it anyway. You as a
Right.
taxpayer will pay for whatever version we have. And I think, again, what worries a lot of people, and it's not like anyone's putting a threat out there, but, what would we rather be in a situation where we're being proactive and we're, came up with a solution that gives our students and teachers that educational space that they need, and we're, preserving and upgrading what we can, and keeping the community, keeping this as the heart of the community? Or do we want to put ourselves in a situation where we potentially have an emergency where all of a sudden now we've got to replace the HVAC, which then now has, kicks in that we have to replace the fire suppression. We have to, get everything up to code, right? Now the students are in that modular situation for who knows how long,
Right.
right? And it's not,
And those
we
will be
know that's not ideal
additional-
for the students, right?
Yeah.
So it's, let's do what we know will be the least disruptive for our students, what we think makes sense now financially, and, let's try and move forward with that. Like I said, and I think, people go to the website and get the information directly. You can contact us. A lot of people will click the contact us, and we try to answer within 24 to 48 hours and respond to people with, when they have their questions. So, please come to us firsthand and get the information. We're trying to give, we are giving you accurate information. And again, you can look at the studies, it's all there. It's not just what we're telling you. You can go look at all these independent studies of, evaluations that have been done on our systems and on our teaching space, and you can see that this is why we're where we are today.
Okay.
I want to hit on a couple things. This is just free flow here, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I think Katherine alluded to this. There are programs for folks that are looking for an abatement or some sort of tax relief. You need to reach out to Town Hall and to the assessors. There are programs there. I do know that if you watch, I think it's Nikki Cadillac's second episode with Doug Davison and the town administrator, John Denizio, John references those programs. And so I would encourage folks to watch that. And if they want to follow up with him, they should. The other point that, I'd like to make is, we've been doing this for I've been doing it for 2.5 years, but we have a building committee that's very robust, and it's, Katherine's references, there's 22 people. When we finally came down to this solution, there was unanimous approval for it, which I'm proud of. I know Chris is, I think the building committee is, and then that was presented to various boards in town, including the select board, and they voted in unanimousness to take it forward. We brought it to Ways and Means, again, unanimous to take this forward, which got put to town meeting, and it was a healthy debate. I think it just ended.
Yeah, I think I'll just wait for the cliff note.
But a lot of really good debate.
Yes.
I mean, it was 4.5 hours. I think the portion related to the high school was 3 hours, and then after 3 calls to end the meeting, 3 calls to call the vote, town meeting stuck it out because they knew how important it was, and over 70% of town meeting members voted to approve the borrowing of the funds subject to a debt exclusion. And the debt exclusion requires a simple majority. They've put it to the town to vote, which is, from my perspective, all I want people to do. If you're for it, vote for it. If you're against it, don't. It's as simple as that.
Just vote,
Just vote.
It's
Okay,
vote.
so with majority, is it a majority of those who actually show up and vote?
Yes.
I believe that's how elections work.
Well, no, I'm just saying, because it's, if only 20% of
It doesn't matter.
There aren't hanging
Well,
chads. I mean, I know
think
Jennifer's going to
on
run a
average
solid
about-
election.
Yeah, I think on average about 20 to 22%
Right.
of our community actually votes, of the
Okay.
registered voters, right?
But that would still count
It
in
doesn't,
this
yeah,
situation.
it's like any election. Whoever shows up to vote, it counts. It does, you don't have to say you need 50% of the registered voters to show up and vote for it to
And-
count. It's,
And just details on the election. So it's Saturday, November 15th.
Okay.
Polling hours are from 8 to 8. There is early voting. That's out Town Hall, and I think it's from the 7th to the 13th, I want to say. The details are on burlington.org about what you can do. The last day to register to vote, I believe, is the 5th of November. And there is mail-in voting as well. And all of that information is on the burlington.org website.
right. And I think some of the PACs have put them on their websites as well.
Okay.
The other advocates for, and I'm
Well, there's
sure the
advocates and
no vote
proponents.
people have it up there too.
Yep.
Exactly. There are PAC groups for both the
Okay.
pro and the con. that have their websites up, and everyone's trying to get the word out to go vote on the 15th. So,
So if the vote passes, construction will start in the spring of 27?
Yes.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
have, if it passes in November, we're going to get started right away as quickly as possible so that we can cut as much delay time, which is
Okay.
money, off of Burlington's bill as possible. And so our plan is to have fully bid construction documents ready to go by this time, or by the end of next year, so 2026.
Okay.
And then the builder, the construction manager, Consigli, which is a great story too there, is that the lead pre-construction executive for Consigli went to high school in this building. And so she's on our team helping us sort it out and get everything sorted in the right direction. Their team will start building the project in 2027.
Okay.
And then from there, it'll be, what did we say, how long?
So we're going to start in the spring of 27, probably that April break.
Okay.
And students would move in, right now we're targeting the fall of 29.
Okay.
And then we would complete all renovation site work. There's a fairly detailed phase schedule, which I don't think we want to get into here,
No,
but
because we only have like 2 minutes left.
all of those details are on our website.
Okay.
And there's
actually-
videos
Yes.
and with a timeline, and it's all very
Okay.
well laid out. And then we should be done by the summer of 2030.
Right, and some of those, I mean, there are a lot of videos on our website, but some of them, people are concerned with the traffic flow and,
Okay.
how these look. We actually have a video that shows kind of like, here's phase 1, and this is what we'll do, and then here's how the students will still be parking. We're trying to, again, make it at least
Parking
disruptive.
lots will stay.
Stay the
Everything's,
same.
Roughly
that's all
the same.
staying, but the students will still, while the construction's going on of the new, if this moves forward, of the new teaching, the new building, they'll still be parking where they were, and then they'll be able to come in and go in the same entrance that they were coming in before, right? And we show an actual rendition of video of how that will work, and when we're building here, this is where things will go, and this will be the flow, and it shows everybody what that should look like to keep everybody safe.
Okay. I do really love, I don't know if you guys were responsible for it, but there's a photo, like an aerial shot of the school right now. And if you slide your mouse over,
I did that.
you can see. Did you really, or are you just taking crap? No, it's the coolest thing ever. You just slide it over, and it shows you which parts are staying and which parts are being replaced. So it doesn't look like the student lot moves at all.
No, it doesn't.
And I know the new project will have 2 physical buildings.
Correct.
Yes.
So at some point you will have to leave the building, but the entire academic part is contained. So they don't have to leave the building to go to lunch.
And what's interesting about that is that the student lot, where they have to go right now, from the student lot to the front door of this building,
Yeah.
the new front door is almost in exactly the same spot, but just about 50 feet around. Like if you kept going and went around the corner, it's about that. It's that close.
Okay.
And then the 2 doors between the Center for Education and the actual high school building are just a couple hundred feet away from each other. And so with a guarded crosswalk and everything like that. So the connection of the campus, even though it looks like 2 buildings, it really is connected, and it's not that different from what students experience right now.
Well, that was a good note to end on because we're out of time.
Oh, are we already? Wow. that
So
went fast.
thank you guys so much.
Thank
I
you.
hope I was able to let you guys talk enough because I'm just like really excited about this whole thing. So thank you for taking the time to give up your evening and come and talk about the project again. But hopefully people will check out the website and not listen to rumors and actually see that, this kind of is the best option for pretty much everybody involved. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And I want to thank everyone for tuning in this evening. I hope that you have a better understanding about how our community can change and will change in the coming years. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening. I will see you around town. Good night.